I'm Tracy.
And I'm April.
Welcome to Killer Spirits. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode
Second episode
of Killer Spirits.
We're so excited. And we actually have better microphone stands, so that makes me happy.
Better microphone stands. No fuzziness.
Fuzzy fuzz
in the background.
Yeah. We have some kinks we're working out, so
Hey, we're new.
We're doing this.
I'm not an AV tech specialist, so.
You might be by the time we're done with
I know, right? If anyone needs to host a podcast, we have all the equipment you might need.
Yes, we definitely might be. And today is All Hallows Day. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Well, yesterday was All Hallows Eve.
Oh, okay.
Today's All Hallows Day, also known as All Saints Day.
Oh.
Also part of Day of the Dead. A couple days.
Dia de los Muertos.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it because I was afraid I'd butcher the crap out of it. But no, yeah.
Cool.
So we're going to continue with the spookiness today.
Yeah. First question. How was your Halloween?
It was quiet.
Yeah.
There was no kids. We had no kids at our house. We just did a little candy scavenger hunt with the little one and dressed up and sat by the fire and drank.
Yeah.
We drank the drink. That was it. What about yours?
Good. Eric's favorite holiday is Halloween.
I know. I love Halloween.
So he went all out with the decorations. We had gravestones and
I saw your little buried people out there. It was pretty good.
chopped off heads in the trees. We had lights. We had a fog machine.
I didn't see any heads in trees.
Yeah, there's like a ghoul hanging.
Oh, shoot. I'll have to go back
and
and look.
a severed head. Last year, because the severed head has like really long gray hair. Mm-hmm. And I put it in 2 pigtail braids last year. So he was our Willie Nelson severed head. I
love it.
This year.
Oh my
hair is
God.
just crazy.
And you got some kiddos?
We got some kiddos. We handed out full-size candy bars this year.
Wow.
Because we're in a new neighborhood. It's our first holiday in a new neighborhood.
I'm actually really surprised that any kids went out. I mean, I thought there might be some in our neighborhood, but we didn't get a one. So that's good. I mean, if you did go out and you were safe, then I'm not judging you.
Yeah.
By
Most
any
of the kids
means.
were wearing masks.
Yeah. Most. It should be all.
Yeah.
But it's fine. It's I heard fireworks though, because I'm sure that people were like,
oh,
this sucks ass, and
shit was crazy.
we need to celebrate. So that was fine.
There was like, so I looked at, because I'm on Nextdoor.
Yeah.
And I'm always like,
oh, next door can be a shit
looking
show.
at the stuff. Ours isn't that bad anymore.
Oh, okay.
In the town we lived in before, it was pretty
bad.
Complaining. There's a lot of complaining.
Oh, there's so much complaining, and it's like stupid stuff.
Here, not that bad. But there was up the street at the shopping center up the street.
Yeah.
There was apparently a bunch of kids in the parking lot peeling out and doing donuts and lighting off fireworks from a truck.
Okay.
Yeah. So we got to listen to engines rev, and whatever backfire on the engine sounded like gunshots.
Oh my God.
Just for like hours.
Happy fucking Halloween.
What is going on?
Bitches.
Yeah, Eric's like, what the fuck?
Oh my God. People are nuts.
Yeah.
Well, I hope everyone else out there had a nice Halloween. I actually didn't eat that much candy. I did have a few pieces, even though I wasn't going to, but then I just like gave in.
Yeah, it's Halloween.
I can always tell myself any kind of reason that's okay. I could justify it at any time of day, on any day.
Like, oh, it's Sunday.
It's Sunday. Tomorrow's Monday.
It's Tuesday. I had a hard day at work.
Yeah.
It's hump day. Wednesday, I gotta have candy.
Yeah. So there's always something I could justify. Yesterday seemed a little bit more justified, but
I mean, it's National Holiday of Candy.
Yeah, I mean, and this is what I was telling Jason last night. Fucking Halloween finally falls on a Saturday night, which totally rocks. The weather was sublime last night. It was perfect. It wasn't too cold. It wasn't too hot. I mean, because we've had years it's like raining. No, it was sublime. And then COVID screwed it. And it was like, wow, thanks a lot.
But next year it'll be on Sunday. I don't know if that means anything.
It
still
doesn't.
a weekend.
You still have to go to school the next day.
And then we have like 7 more years until it's a Saturday again. So
I don't even know what I'll be doing in 7 years. I have no idea. Let's not contemplate it. It makes me depressed. Okay, so let's get to the spirit portion of our podcast because I'm really excited to try the concoction that you have created for today's episode.
So today's episode, since we haven't mentioned it yet.
Oh, yeah.
Is Warwick Castle.
Spoiler alert, it's haunted.
Spoiler alert, it's haunted. And also they have some questionable holding areas for...
Questionable. Prisoners?
Call them inmates? I don't know.
No.
We'd call them inmates now, but...
Criminals.
Their
version of criminals.
Right.
We don't really know.
They're like... Crimes were different back then.
Yes, they
you
were.
Could get convicted of all kinds of weird stuff.
Maybe crimes weren't different, but definitely the punishment was different.
Yeah. So today's cocktail is called the Bloody.
The Buddy. Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy. I've already had one of these today.
Oh, okay.
And
I'm excited.
It's only 1:00, so yeah. This one's called the Bloody Oubliette.
Ooh, I love the name.
The Oubliette is... Do you want to talk about that?
We're going to talk about it.
Okay, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
It's
This is just an homage to the dungeon and the oubliette therein.
Yes. There was a lot of medieval torture style things. So
yes.
Part of the drink that is the torture is the sugar rim. And the sugar rim is dipped with maraschino cherry juice and habanero juice. So I took habanero peppers and muddled them up, mixed them with the cherry juice.
Wow.
For the rim.
Okay.
And then it's just pomegranate sugar.
Oh, okay.
So that's the torture part.
Okay.
It's going to heat up, burn your lip a little bit. Then, for the rest of the drink, is 3 strawberries muddled, 3/4 of an ounce of simple syrup, 1 ounce of lemon, 2 ounces of gin, and it's London dry gin, because we are talking about England here.
Yeah, duh, people.
And 1.5 ounces of mead. So the reason why I picked mead is because the castle is so old. It was built in like 1000, right?
Yep.
It's
over 1,000 years old, yeah.
It's old as hell. And the oldest drink that there is, that they know of, is mead.
Really?
Yeah.
And what is mead again?
Mead is fermented honey water.
Okay.
Sometimes it's made with fruit or like grains, which makes it kind of more of like a beery flavor.
So like when it was made 1,000 years ago, was it with honey or was it more with grains?
It was with honey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oldest,
and I don't think I've actually ever had mead, so I'm really excited.
Oldest known beverage.
Really?
And for like 5 seconds, I was really into Greek mythology.
5 seconds.
Greek mythology. If you've ever heard of like ambrosia of the gods, they talk about the gods drinking ambrosia. This is like, sort of what it was. Probably wasn't the exact thing, but...
So the gods were drinking this.
It would have been mead. I don't know that it would have been a mixed strawberry cocktail.
Interesting. All right, so I'm going to take a sip of this.
Wait, I forgot. The Prosecco Float.
Oh, yeah.
So the cocktail itself is very sweet. So I used an extra dry Prosecco. So it kind of balances it out a little.
You poured a little bit on top. And I have to tell you, we will post pictures of this drink. It is absolutely beautiful. It is like a blushy pink color. And she used a gigantic nail to impale her strawberry.
Yeah. We're talking about torture.
It's very tortury. So I'm going to take a sip and see how torturous it is. It's very sweet, but not overly sweet. I think the Prosecco really helps it. Whew, yeah, the sugar. It gets you on the back end.
So I only did a sugar rim on half the glass because you may not want to blow out your palate completely. But
I don't think it's overly done though. But it's like you're not expecting the spice at the end, and then it's like, whoo, hello. Mm-hmm. No, that is absolutely delicious. I love it.
The mead has such an interesting flavor. Like when you opened that bottle and smelled it, you were like, ugh.
It smelled not good.
The smell is so much different.
I keep getting the spice.
Oh, that's funny.
That's good. You also put a little twist of lemon on there. You forgot to tell it.
Yes, a lemon
peel. Anyway, go ahead. You were talking about mead.
Oh, it kind of smells like I don't want to say like garbage because it doesn't smell like garbage. It smells like old fruit.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Like
yeah,
it's not like a winey scent, and I think this mead was like 13%. So it's not.
Oh, there's like different percentages that you can get.
Well, it depends on how long you ferment it.
Oh.
So
okay.
and actually, what I found out is it's really easy to make your own mead.
Oh.
Because it's literally just honey and water. So people will make like flavored, with blueberries or whatever.
I feel like I'm learning so much.
Yeah.
Also, when you drink alcohol on an empty stomach and all of a sudden you just get that fan of warmth throughout your stomach. Yeah. That's what I just felt.
It just kind of hits your knees a little bit.
It hit me. I have not eaten lunch. That is my fault. That's really good. Okay, so we shall sip and we shall speak about Warwick Castle. This. Yeah, so I fell down about 1,000 years of rabbit holes. I'd like you to know. I just kept spinning off into this and that and the other, and I got really excited about things. So I have a lot, but also I condensed as much as I could because there's so many things that I could have talked about for so long. So before I get started, I always like to say where I got my sources. The Warwick Castle site actually has a lot of good history on it. It's a fun site to look at if you just want to go look at it. And when I'm saying Warwick, I'm saying Warwick.
Oh, I thought it was Warwick.
Well, if you're an American and you don't speak properly, it is. I'm just kidding.
So it's like Warwick?
Yeah, okay. It's Warwick that's the British way of saying it.
I don't want to offend the name.
But, Americans call it Warwick. I'm sure that nobody cares. But yeah, so it's Warwick Castle. And I got a lot of stuff from their site. Also a site called haunted/britain.com. And it's by Richard Jones, who is an author and leading authority on the UK's ghostly tales, folklore, and history. So that was kind of cool. He has a book. It was $105.
What?
I did not purchase that book.
Is it like a college textbook or something?
No, I think it's just probably like out of print or something.
Oh, maybe.
And so I didn't get the book. Aww. So, Richard, I'm sure your book's fab, but I did not buy it. But he does have a really nice website, so he has a lot of stuff on there. Wikipedia. Hello. And our warwickshire.org.uk has a lot of good stuff on there. There is another one called Runcom Hist.
What the what?
It's like runcomhistsoc.org.uk. I'm not sure what
it's like History Society.
Yeah, something like that.
Society
yeah,
or something.
And then Britannica's awesome. Historicuk.com. I think I might have said that already. And then Spooky Isles, and there's also a site called Exploring Castles, which is really good. And then there is a channel on YouTube called The Untold Past.
You really did a lot of digging. That is a lot of sources, girl.
I have a lot. I spun out. Like, I spent a lot of the week, but I enjoyed it. It was great. So let's get started. Warwick is actually a market town and a county town of Warwickshire in England. It lies near the River Avon, about 11 miles south of Coventry and west of Leamington. Hello, everyone. I would just like you to know that if I butcher names, I'm very sorry. I try, okay? I always want to be very respectful of names, and I try, but sometimes I'm going to butcher it. And Whitnash. It lies north of London and actually isn't far from Shakespeare's birthplace, Stratford-upon-Avon. So Stratford-upon-Avon, Avon is the river. That's why they call it that. So it's absolutely beautiful there, and all the people are super nice. I have been there, and that was my experience. That everyone was really nice, and I have a memory of being lost and not being able to find something, and somebody was super sweet and helped us, and I don't know. I thought the town was beautiful, and the land, like the whole landscape, is amazing. So we're going to talk about Warwick Castle today. Mm-hmm. And Warwick Castle was built more than 1,100 years ago and fought over by earls and kings for centuries. So it has a very long history. It has a long and colorful history of torture and punishment, and is considered one of the most haunted places in England. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Over 1,000 years ago, Danish invaders began moving in on Saxon lands from the north. The Saxon army was led by the eldest daughter of King Alfred the Great, a warrior princess called Ethelfleda. Now, I've seen her name a few ways, like Ethelflade or Ethelfleda. So there's a few ways that you can say it.
Is that a full first name or
first
and last name?
I don't know if they did last names.
Oh, it was like blah, 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 son of...
I think
whoever
so. I don't know.
The hell. Okay.
I'm not quotable because I could be wrong a lot of times.
We should get you a
shirt
that says
I think her name is awesome. And if I ever have another cat, her name is definitely going to be Ethelfleda. I just want everyone to know that.
I like it.
So at the time of her birth in the late 9th century, England was composed of several kingdoms and was under attack from the Vikings. Go figure, right? So they had successful campaigns, which were demonstrated by their conquest of substantial territory of the north and east of Warwickshire, known as Danelaw. So they actually had already taken over a lot of land, the Vikings did. So after the death of her husband, Ethelred, so it's Ethelfreda and Ethelred. Like everyone's Ethel or Alfred or somebody.
Maybe that was their last name.
I don't know. But that was her husband's name, Ethelred.
Surname.
And he was Lord of Mercia, which I think sounds really cool. He had driven the Vikings out of part of Mercia, and so she became known as the Lady of the Mercians and was accepted as ruler. So women actually exercised quite a bit of power in Anglo-Saxon England, which...
Girl power,
and I love that. So Ethelfleda, also known as the Lady of the Mercians, like I said, was strong, independent, and well-educated. She ruled Mercia in the English Midlands from about 911 until her death in 918. So not a huge amount of time, but she did have quite an impact on everything going on then. So Mercia, which means people of the marshes or boundaries, one of the most powerful kingdoms of Anglo-Saxon England. Mercia originally comprised the border areas where modern Staffordshire, Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire, and northern West Midlands and Warwickshire. So it's a very large area. Ethelfleda, I don't know. I'm so sorry. Kept busy constructing a series of fortresses in the northwest Midlands. So she actually worked alongside her brother Edward. And she set about establishing burhs, which is like Burhs, burhs, or fortified settlements to consolidate the defense of English territory and provide bases so they could attack the Vikings. Because the Anglo-Saxons and the Vikings, they did not like each other. And they were both fighting over the same lands around that time.
Gotcha.
So in case you hadn't caught on yet, they didn't get along.
Yeah. There's some hate there.
Yeah. So I actually read a very interesting article in Science Nordic by Mads Ron. I think it's Ron. It's Ravn. That the Vikings may not have actually been as bad as we think they are. They just got really bad press.
Oh, so maybe they're not that brutal?
Well, they were brutal.
Oh.
But really what he was saying is that the Anglo-Saxons were more brutal.
Oh.
There was a lot of ethnic cleansing going on during that time.
Interesting.
Yeah. So in recent decades, groundbreaking research in DNA, archaeology, history, and linguistics provide kind of evidence to that possibly the Anglo-Saxons were worse. But, everyone's always talking about the Vikings. You know?
Well, all the TV shows don't help.
No. Though I've never watched Vikings. Have you? I've heard it's really good.
I've watched some of it, but I've seen other shows that are like Viking-esque and have Vikings in it that's not called Vikings, but they always seem to be very brutal.
And I'm sure they were, but they were not the worst invaders to land on English shores at the time. That title goes to the Anglo-Saxons.
Interesting.
400 years earlier. So honestly, I could talk about this for 3 hours, but we're going to move on. Because I feel like Ethelfleda is so cool and has a lot to talk about. But so in 914 AD, Ethelfleda ordered the building of a burh or a fortified rampart to protect the new town of Warwick. 2014 actually marked the 1100th anniversary of the founding of this settlement.
Holy cow.
And Ethelfleda's mound can still be seen there today. You want to see her mound.
I was going to say.
That sounds terrible, but it's true. And that was really where the start of Warwick Castle came from, was her mound. Okay. In 917, Edward and Ethelfleda launched a massive offensive, quickly overwhelming the entire Danish army of East Anglia.
Wow.
So yeah, she was badass. She really was. So we're going to skip ahead a little bit. The first castle appeared on this site thanks to another invader. You might have heard of him, William the Conqueror.
Oh.
Yeah. Who hasn't heard of Will?
What up, Billy?
What's up, Willie? After his victory over King Harold at the Battle of Hastings in 1066, he needed to consolidate his power in England. So in 1068, he ordered the building of a wooden Motte and Bailey castle in the Midlands as the means of holding the area and securing the lines of supply. So that was really how most castles started, as wood, like a wooden keep that they used to make.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so that's why you're not going to see a lot of castles, you know, they're gone. They're wood.
Well, yeah, they're made
of that
wood.
oldness. Yeah. Oldness. I don't know. Is that a word? I made it up.
Well, wood is probably easier to carry than rocks.
Yeah. So that's how it started. At the time of Doomsday in 1086, the only towns in what is now the county of Warwickshire were Warwick, Tamworth, and Coventry. And it had about a population of 1,800 people.
That seems kind of a lot of people.
It kind of does.
For old times.
Oh, for olden times?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, it was a popular area and it was along the river.
Yeah.
So that was really why they decided to choose that spot.
Gotcha.
So as a little aside, in case you had never heard of it, have you heard of the Doomsday Book?
I haven't.
I had heard of the Doomsday Book, but I wasn't completely certain what it was. It's a famous and very old public record of the Great Survey of much of England, kind of like our modern day census, but nothing like that had ever been done before.
Why is the name so ominous?
I think the name is ominous because I didn't write this down, but there was something that I read that it was called Doomsday because I don't know. I really don't know.
It just sounds like really scary.
It does, and I feel like I knew it, and it was on the tip of my brain, but it's like I just can't remember what the reasoning is. Look it up while I'm talking, and then you could tell me.
Ignore my typing.
There was a reason, and I did read it, but like I said, rabbit holes. Okay. So it is actually still fascinating. Over 900 years later, you can look in the book and read it, and they have it in a museum in London that you could go see the real thing.
Okay.
Are you looking? Do you see?
Why is it called
Doomsday
Book?
Tell me. Remind me.
So it's actually spelled not what I thought.
Oh, no. It's D-O-M-E.
It's D-O-M-E-S-D-A-Y.
Yeah. Oh.
It's called Doomsday as a metaphor for the day of judgment.
Oh.
Because its decisions like those of the Last Judgment were unalterable.
Yes, it was unalterable. That's right. So it's like, this is what it was.
This is the census today.
And it basically described the lands that people owned and that sort of thing.
And like how many kids they had and stuff? Or no?
Now that I don't know. But I mean, it's a really cool record that we would not have of things that happened way back then. So, and the fact that it's still in existence is pretty cool.
Yeah, I was thinking D-O-O-M.
Oh, yeah. Doomsday.
Doomsday.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so Willie, entrusted the construction of Warwick Castle to Henry de Newburgh, who later became the first Earl of Warwick in 1088. And he will be the first of a long-ass line of earls.
Come on,
so many earls and countesses.
I would just like to... An aside, this drink is delicious.
Are you? You're almost done.
I'm almost done. I think I'm just going to pour myself a glass of Prosecco after this.
I'm all about the Prosecco lately. I love Prosecco so much. I feel like I shouldn't drink it and then talk because the torture.
We'll just drink it from the other side.
Okay. So the de Newburgh family would hold the castle for 5 generations. Under their ownership, the wooden castle began to rebuild. They began to rebuild it in stone, while Warwick developed into a thriving market town. The Newburghs also witnessed the castle's first attempted siege during the period known as the Anarchy.
Ooh.
I feel like we're in the Anarchy right now. In our
time.
time.
I can feel that.
Yeah, I can feel that. The last de Newburgh, Thomas, died without an heir in 1242, so the castle and the estate passed to his sister, Margaret. However, Mags was probably like, great, I got this castle. What's up? King John didn't think that Margaret was suitable to run the castle alone. Like, who the fuck are you, dude?
Yeah.
Why are you making decisions? Okay, so she was married off to some guy named John du Plessis. And they hated each other.
Oh, that's nice.
They hated each other, and they would only actually meet a few times throughout their lives and never had kids because she probably was like, I ain't consummating this.
No.
So because she died childless, in 1263, the title changed hands once more, and this time falling to Margaret Newburgh's cousin, William Mauduit, which I might be saying wrong.
Mauduit?
Mauduit.
That sounds right.
So then I guess he was boring because nothing is said about him. And then he was succeeded by his nephew, William de Beauchamp. And it was with William that the dynasty lasted 180 years, and Warwick Castle was brought to the height of its fortunes.
Oh.
So that's kind of cool.
Nephew had it figured out, apparently.
Yes. So William's son Guy inherited the castle, and he aimed to impose control over King Edward and govern the kingdom. You shouldn't do that, FYI. It's a bad move. But their main complaint against the king at the time, King Edward, was the role and powers he had granted to some guy named Piers Gaveston, who was a Gascon knight and probably the king's lover. And people were kind of pissed off about that. So by 1312, tensions between the king and the ordainers had risen. And if you don't know who the ordainers are, that was
that's like a group?
Yeah, it was a committee of about 21 nobles and high-ranking members of clergy who opposed Edward II. And they basically made a bunch of ordinances that they wanted him to follow so they could regulate him.
Oh.
So, yeah. So part of one of those ordinances is that they were like, Gaveston, your little gay lover, has to leave.
Aww.
I know. So I don't know what the whole story is about that. Maybe he was messing some things up, but people were not happy. But this is kind of sad because he surrendered to the earls under the promises that his life would be spared. Do you think that they kept their promise, April?
100% no. There's no way.
No. So Guy de Beauchamp seized the prisoner and brought him to Warwick Castle. Even though, why are you a prisoner? Just because we don't like the king?
Well, that's what I was saying. Like,
yeah,
back then people got prosecuted for things that
totally
are like ridiculous.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was because they thought he was his lover or because there was some other shady stuff going on.
Yeah, maybe.
But everyone was always seizing everything back then.
Right.
So after a cursory trial, meaning they probably were just like, blah blah blah, yeah, you're guilty.
Blah blah blah, you're guilty.
Blah blah blah. There's my trial.
To the stocks.
In the original Great Hall of the castle, Gaveston was sentenced to death, and he was beheaded in the woods just outside Warwick.
Aye.
So that wasn't the best idea for Guy to do. This actually caused a political catastrophe for Guy, and he died a mysterious death 3 years later.
Oh.
So
poison.
You
never
never know.
Poison.
Yeah. So Guy's son, he had a son named Thomas I, who inherited the castle in the mid-1300s and also became the Earl of Warwick. And he began construction on the towers that still stand today. Caesar's Tower in the southeast corner of Warwick Castle was built during this time and was outfitted with, I'm going to say this word, machicolations. Pretty cool, huh?
What is that?
So a machicolation is a little like a balcony with holes in the floor, built high on the side of the castle. So if people were trying to take over your castle, you could actually throw objects through this hole at attackers below.
That's interesting.
So the word probably comes from the old French word for crush, which is machier, and neck, which is coal. So it's probably machicolation now that I'm thinking about it. And that actually translates to neck crushers. We gonna crush your neck.
Yeah, just throw like big ass rocks down this hole.
Yeah, so they're also called murder holes, which I think is pretty cool. So, not a lot of castles have murder holes anymore.
Sounds gross.
I know. Here's your mom murder hole.
Watch out for the murder hole.
But you could throw down rocks, stones, arrows, and they would even throw down dead bodies. Like,
okay.
Here you go.
Yeah, take that, bud.
Yeah, or if they tried to, sometimes they would try to set the castles on fire and they could pour water down there.
Oh.
So Thomas, his son, who was also Thomas II, succeeded his father, Thomas I, as Earl in 1369 and became the 12th Earl of Warwick. But he was all messed up. Do you like my historical versions of things? He's all messed up. And King Richard II accused him of treason.
Oh.
So he was tucked away at the Tower of London in what is still called Beauchamp Tower. Thomas II was exiled. The king was usurped. And then Thomas reclaimed the castle and was like, in your face, Richard. And then Thomas II's son, who he named Richard. Why are you naming your son after the guy who exiled you?
They're just running out of names.
I don't get it. Anyway, so then he had a son, took back the castle, had a son named Richard, and he was probably one of the most prominent of the family. In 1431, the English brought the captive Joan of Arc to England, and it fell to Richard Beauchamp to oversee her trial and execution.
Interesting.
I didn't know about that history of that. It's pretty cool. And Richard's son Henry was named the first and only Duke of Warwick in 1445, but he died the next year. I know. And he was survived by an infant daughter, Anne, who died when she was only 5. Aww. I hate that. So I don't know what happened to her, but I thought that was sad. So the castle went to her uncle, Richard Neville, who tried to depose King Henry VI. Again, don't do that.
Not a good idea, dude.
But then later he defected and deposed King Edward IV, only to return Henry VI to the throne.
What?
Fickle.
Yeah.
But King Edward was like, hell no. These are in my notes. Hell no, bitches.
Hell no, bitches.
And re-seized his power. And then Richard Neville was killed. Oh. So he did not pick a good side.
No.
Yeah. So that happened a lot. So King Edward tried to give the castle to his brother George, Duke of Clarence. But George was also dumb and tried to take the throne. So he was executed for treason in 1478.
What are these guys up to?
Everybody wants the throne, dude.
Learn from the mistakes of the previous. Like, they're like, oh, no, it's okay. I'll be the one.
Yeah. No, everyone wants the throne. They either want the throne or they want someone off the throne. I don't know. It's all crazy. So then the castle was instead awarded to the king's older brother, another Richard, Duke of Gloucester, who was like, yo, bro, thanks for the gift. And then he went on remodeling stuff.
Oh, cool.
So he was kind of smart.
He's like, I'm about to pimp this place out.
But there's always a but. But after his brother, King Edward IV, died in 1483, he succeeded as King Richard III. But.
Second but.
This was only after the disappearance of his nephews, the princes in the tower. Do you know that story?
I don't. I never even heard of it.
Okay, well, that's a whole other podcast. But I'll give you a little blip-a-doo.
I'm writing it down.
And I just put in my notes, this is a whole other episode, which is true. It is. And it's still actually hotly debated if Richard III was the culprit. In 1674, workmen at the Tower of London dug up a wooden box containing 2 small human skeletons. And I have been at the Tower of London. It is impressive. It's beautiful. It's also where they keep the crown jewels.
Oh, that's cool.
So the bones were found in a box under the staircase and were widely accepted at the time as those of the princes. But this has not been proven and is far from certain. Anyway, Richard would prove to be an unpopular king and was defeated at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485 by Henry Tudor, who succeeded as King Henry VII and inherited the castle. And so the Tudor rule began. Yeah.
The Tudor.
The Tudors.
Tudors?
I heard there's a show called The Tudors, but I've never watched that either.
Tudors. It's like Middle Ages.
Though I just watched, I wish I could remember the name. It was on YouTube and it was about Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn and kind of their love story, and it was so good. I'll have to remember the name and say it our next episode because it's highly worth watching.
I could look it up.
The woman who does it is so good, and she goes to all these different places and looks in the archives for different things. There's books that still have Anne's writing in it, which is so amazing.
Is it The Lovers Who Changed History?
I think it is. Yeah. It's The Lovers Who Changed History. Yeah, it was really
Henry and Anne, The Lovers Who Changed History.
Yeah. Who does it? Do you know? Does it say? It's on YouTube, but
it's on the channel World History Documentaries.
Okay.
And also uploaded by that's a commentary on it.
Well, I don't know who the woman is who is the host of it. But first of all, she's got some really nice hair. But also, I just really think that her Just the way she presents information is really good. I loved it. I think I spent 2 hours the other morning watching that. So I fell down more than 1,000 years of rabbit holes.
The paintings of her are so pretty.
Yeah. Okay, I'm moving on. Despite being the castle's most famous owners, the Tudor ownership of the castle would prove to be the darkest period of the Warwick history, as King Henry VII and VIII would allow the castle to fall into disrepair.
Come on,
guys. They were kind of busy. Well, Henry VIII was really busy. I mean, he had like 6 wives, dude.
Some people can't even handle one. I don't know how you think you're going to do 8.
Well, if you can't handle her, just chop her head off. That's what he did.
Yeah.
Not all of them. He didn't chop all their heads off, but despite paying for improvements to the kitchens and reinforcing the south face of the castle, many areas of the castle were abandoned by the Tudor monarchs. In 1547, the castle was granted to John Dudley, but he too would ignore the castle. How dare you? And spend little to no time in Warwick. And I actually read this.
It's like a rental house for him. He's just like,
Yeah, he just did nothing with it.
The plumbing looks fine. Oh.
And I did read this thing that Queen Elizabeth I went to visit Warwick Castle, but it was in such disrepair. They actually built another building for her on the side.
What?
I don't know why she went there, though.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Press tour?
I mean, I just want to be queen for a day.
It wouldn't be enough.
Maybe. Yeah, you're right. I was just going to say maybe more than one day. I mean, just to be able to say, I want to do this, I want to do that, and everyone just comes and runs and does what you say.
Sounds nice.
It does kind of sound nice.
It also sounds kind of annoying, though. To have people around all the time. They're like, do you need this? Do you need this? It's like, just go away.
You'd be such a bitchy queen.
Just charge my cell phone and get
Oh
out
my
of
God,
here.
are you in here bothering me again?
Make me a drink. But then I'm also
You'd be
like,
the drunk queen.
But they'd be like, ma'am, it's 8 a.m.
I don't think they say ma'am.
Oh.
I think they say your majesty.
Your highness?
I don't know.
Is it your highness? Your majesty?
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever they'd call me.
They better call.
I would just feel judged.
You wouldn't care if you were judged because you were the queen ordained by God. Hello.
But then I also think it's a difference between being born queen and being like inserted as queen. It's probably way different.
Well, you're going to know when you're born where you are on the line.
Right. But I mean, if it was just like you or me and we just like all of a sudden became queen.
That doesn't happen.
It would be a different experience.
We're not in the line.
I know, but just like theoretically.
Theoretically.
Me, myself with my brain right now.
You could abdicate the throne though and be like, nope, I ain't doing that.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
has happened.
Well, that's true.
Yep. Where was I? Okay. So we talked about John Dudley. He let it go into disrepair.
The special building for the queen.
Oh, yeah. I actually didn't write that down. It was just something I remembered. By the time the Dudley line ended in 1590, the castle was in such a state of dilapidation. I think that's such a great word. That in 1603, King James I scheduled the castle for demolition.
Oh.
He was like, I'm done with looking at this eyesore.
Yeah.
But
This is a hunk of shit.
in an attempt to gain more support from the English nobility, King James instead chose to grant the castle to Sir Fulk Greville. Warwick had been unoccupied for 14 years and was basically in ruins. Sir Fulk went about renovating and rebuilding. So he did a lot to the castle during that time. But there's a lot of buts.
There's always a but.
There's so many buts. Was brutally murdered by his manservant, Ralph Heywood. I've seen it written as Heywood. I've seen it written as Hayward, but I'm going to go with Heywood.
Oh, Ralph?
Ralphie, this happened in 1628 at the end. He was age 20. Okay, listen. Sir Fulk Greville was aged 74 when this happened.
So he was pretty
1628, yeah. So Ralph was actually pissed off that Sir Fulk left him such a small amount in his will. Only 20 pounds. He was like, dude, I've been your servant for all these years and this is what you give me? Oh. That's the one story. The other story is that they were possibly lovers and he felt jilted.
That's always the other story.
There's so many stories. Like, who knows, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, they could have been. I think the punishment for, you know, homosexuality back then was like hanging. Like, it was a big deal. So, you know, that's not something that is known about that. So anyway, that's what it could totally just be gossip, but that is one thing. So after he was stabbed, Greville's physicians treated his wounds by filling them with mutton fat.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Don't you think that would be a great way to disinfect them?
No. It sounds horrible.
Do you know what mutton is?
Goat.
I think it's more sheepy.
Oh, is it sheep?
Yeah,
I thought it was just old goat.
Old goat? I don't think it's old goat. I think it's like...
Oh, it's lamb.
Okay, yeah. So
it's sheep.
Yeah, so sheep. So rather...
3-year-old sheep.
Yeah, so rather than disinfecting them, the mutton fat turned rancid and infected the wounds. So he actually died in agony about 4 weeks after the attack.
What ding-dongs.
I can't... Just the thought of being... Like having a stab wound and they're shoving fat in it kind of just... I don't know if I can finish my drink.
Yeah, that
it
makes
just
me kinda
sounds
sick to my
disgusting.
stomach. Well, like, what did they think it was going to do? Like, glue it together?
This is 1628. I don't know. Maybe they thought... I don't know. Who knows what they thought in 1628?
That's bizarre.
Yeah, that was really
or like
crazy.
Preserve him or something.
Yeah. So his body was brought back to Warwick and he was buried at the Collegiate Church of St. Mary, Warwick. So that's where you can find him. But his ghost returns to the castle to walk the room that was once his study, and witnesses have reported catching fleeting glimpses of him staring at them sadly from the dark corners or of feeling his presence.
Interesting.
Yeah, because he's like, don't give me mutton fat.
Oh.
Moans are often heard in the Ghost Tower, which its actual name is the Watergate Tower, but they call it the Ghost Tower now. And people have claimed to have witnessed the figure of a man emerging from his portrait. So his portrait hangs in Warwick Castle.
That's cool.
Yeah. So he comes out and is like, blah. That's what he does. So the castle then stayed in the Greville family until 1978. In November 1978, the family sold Warwick Castle to the Tussaud Group. I feel like we talked about the Tussauds on our last episode too. You know, Waxworks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Wax Peeps.
Not them.
So under Tussaud's group, which was absorbed into Merlin Entertainments in 2007, Warwick Castle has undergone millions of pounds of restoration works to maintain the castle's glorious past, which it really is. It's a very long history, and ensure through continued research and conservation that the castle will continue to stand as Britain's ultimate castle. So when I went, it was 2000. So that was before it was absorbed by Merlin Entertainment. So I did read some things online that talked about the dungeon tour being a little theme parkish now. So that wasn't.
Those are kind of the pictures I saw.
Yeah. So that was not the case when I visited there. So when I talk about my experience, it was not that. Though there were wax figures there, which I thought were pretty cool because they do have them in all throughout the castle, and they're dressed. I mean, it's almost like you're seeing people live their lives in different time periods.
Oh, that's cool.
And I thought they were pretty cool. I didn't think they were theme parky at all.
No, I think now it's more people like dressed up as ghosts and monsters. And
yeah.
It's like kind of a haunted house vibe.
Yeah, and I think it is. So I haven't been there since that has happened. So, I mean, I read differing views on that. Some people love it. Some people don't. My view on that is that it's being taken care of and the history is going on, so I'm happy about that because it's a beautiful castle.
If that's what you guys need to do to bring in the money to keep it
exactly
together, then that's what you gotta do.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the ghostly happenings there. Ooh. So one is the Ghost of Maul Bloxham. There are a few versions of what happened to Maul. Okay, sometime during the medieval times, Maul Bloxham was a milkmaid at Warwick Castle who lived in a cottage close to the castle. A concession granted to her by the Earl was to sell surplus milk and butter from the castle kitchens to the town folk. Mm-hmm. So I also
side biz.
She had a nice little biz thing happening. So I also read reports that she sold bread and ale, which is what I would have been buying.
Yeah, I'll leave the milk.
Well, you might have needed milk back then. It probably tasted better too than the milk we have today.
Probably, yeah.
Because it was fresh from the tap. I don't know what voice that was, but I kind of liked it.
Fresh from the udder.
Fresh from the udder. So villagers became angry at her because she was charging high prices, but she was giving them very small portions. But they were afraid to say anything because for some reason they thought she was a witch. I don't know.
Like you do back then.
Yeah. When word of this reached the Earl, he was angry that the townspeople were being swindled and his good nature was being abused. So he withdrew the concession from her. The townspeople then chased her to the castle and up Caesar's tower, where she apparently fell out of the tower and then changed into a large black dog with flaming red eyes.
Okay.
Come on.
What the
She
heck?
was a witch, April.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, hello. Things happened back then. I just need you to know.
I feel like maybe people were taking too many mushrooms or something. Or like
Maybe.
high on LSD.
So although she stopped appearing in that form, the form of the puppy dog,
Right.
she now haunts the castle in the form of a ghostly gray lady, and she can be seen there still today.
Ooh. Is she still swindling people out of their cash?
She's probably trying, but
She's like, look at this. Get this milk.
come and get this ale. I'll be like,
It's 3 shillings. Like, we don't have shillings.
no more shillings. So Frances Evelyn Daisy Greville, Countess of Warwick, who was born in 1861, was very interested in spiritualism and ghostly happenings too. So she loved to hold seances. It is said that a seance she held in the castle's Kenilworth room released a malevolent evil spirit. And she and her guests were so frightened they fled, and she closed Kenilworth room for years and refused to enter after that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that spooky shit.
She was scared.
I would have been.
I know. Yeah. So I kind of wonder what happened. I don't know what happened during that seance, but people say that the demonic energy of that spirit can still be felt in the room as unexplained banging noises are heard, and visitors report strong feelings of nausea.
Oh, I've never even heard of that being a... You know, people usually say they feel cold or whatever, but
Yeah.
if you feel sick to your stomach.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you my dungeon story in a minute.
Oh, okay.
So in 2009, when the castle dungeons were being converted into a new tourist attraction with a ghostly theme from Merlin, it seemed that real ghosts were intervening in the process. Workers reported that the unexplained smell of lavender was constantly around them, which is not a bad thing in a dungeon.
That's interesting.
I think lavender's not bad. And many left the site in terror after they saw the figure of a woman in old-fashioned clothes watching them from a doorway.
Yikes.
They're like, we don't care about this new attraction. We out.
Yeah. Hey, this job is not that good.
Right. Others reported the apparition of a man in a medieval tunic and trousers. And CCTV footage later recorded an indistinct and ghostly figure appearing to follow the workers as they moved around the dungeons.
Ooh, creepy.
What the fuck? And that actually does not surprise me at all, because I'm going to now talk about the dungeons. Are you ready?
The dungeons are bad.
They're bad?
Bad.
Like badass or bad?
Bad. Like, I was looking at pictures and there was like the thing that I posted on Twitter and Instagram, our Twitter and Instagram,
Yes.
with the poles around.
Oh yeah,
There's also a like a drawn diagram of how that was used.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck?
No, it's horrific.
Horrific.
And that is not Warwick Dungeon, but we will talk about that.
Right.
Yeah. So in the deepest, darkest recesses of the castle, a dark entity is said to haunt the former Warwick Castle dungeon. This malevolent spirit is believed to be a sadistic jailer that delighted in torturing the prisoners that he once watched over. He has been known to violently assault people by shoving and scratching them. Growls and screams of anguished souls being tortured have been heard, as well as the pitiful pleas of prisoners to be set free.
Wow.
The Warwick Dungeon was rebuilt in 1356 to house prisoners taken in the Battle of Poitiers. I think I said that right. Which was part of the 100 Years' War. The dungeon is drained only by an open gully in the floor, ventilated by one small shaft, and there's barely any light. There are inscriptions and carvings in the stone walls that show that some prisoners were probably there for many years.
Wow.
Crazy.
That's wild.
So you first walk down stone stairs into a narrow hallway to descend to the dungeon. Okay, there's like these little stairs that go down. It's super narrow. So I'll tell you a little bit about my own experience, because I have been to this dungeon. And like I said, that was 20 years ago. I was just 3. No, I'm just kidding. I toddled down the stairs.
She could barely remember it. She was only 3.
No, I actually was not 3. I was in my 20s. And okay, so when you walk down those little stairs, which is it's like really cramped, and when you first walk in, hanging from the ceiling is a gibbet cage. Do you know what a gibbet cage is?
No.
Okay, so if you've never heard of what a gibbet cage is, it's basically a human-shaped cage. Gibbeting was the practice of locking criminals in human-shaped cages and hanging them up for display in public areas as a warning. In most cases, criminals were executed prior to gibbeting, but sometimes they were hung in there alive to starve and die of exposure. So, I mean, the fact that it was in the dungeon probably isn't that realistic because it would have been more of a public display. So right. I highly doubt that was used in the dungeon, but it did give a nice creep factor. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that's still hanging based on the pictures that I saw. I don't think they took that down because it looks really creepy because there's this tiny little bit of light that comes in and it kind of shines through the cagey parts of it. And it just is creepy. It's very, very creepy.
I'll post on our Twitter.
Yeah.
I'll post a picture.
So I can't really remember exactly how big the dungeon was, but I don't remember it being that big. And I couldn't find anything anywhere that told me the exact dimensions of it. Mm. I mean, I would say like the size of my living room, maybe.
Okay.
Not huge. So the further I walked into the dungeon, and I have recalled this feeling for years. Like I've told this story many times. I just felt like this oppression. You know, you walk in, it's almost like someone's sitting on your chest.
Like heavy. Super
heavy. It was almost like you just feel sad, you know? And it's weird because I would not really believe someone when they said, oh yeah, this is how I felt. I'd be like, whatever. It's just, you know, no, I actually did feel that way. And I remember when we walked down into the dungeon, I didn't really even recognize that I was walking down into a dungeon. I remember we didn't go on any guided tours. We just showed up and we just wandered around. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like I knew where I was walking down into. I just thought I was walking into another part, you know, of anywhere.
Right.
And then once you get in, though, you pretty much figure like, oh, wow, okay, this is the dungeon.
This is like not like everything else.
Super cold, super damp. Just this feeling of just, ugh, like I can't even explain it. Like, and almost nausea. I almost felt nausea. I really did. And so when you keep walking in the furthest corner of the dungeon, there's this small square with a grate over it. And that was called the oubliette. And I had never heard of that word before. I didn't even understand what that was. So if you think the dungeon's bad, the oubliette is like the dungeon times 100,000. Mm-hmm. It's terrible. The word oubliette has its roots in the old French word oublier, which basically means to forget. So when someone's being shoved down in there, they're going to be forgotten, most likely. So oubliettes were common in many castle dungeons and were used for what they deemed the worst criminals. Oubliettes were often at the lowest point of the dungeon, which assured that anything and everything drained into that hole.
Nice.
Isn't that disgusting?
Yeah.
So they're usually small, damp, and lightless, and most often you couldn't stand up fully, so it was really cramped.
Yeah, like you could barely turn around if you even could.
Some were just simple straight shafts. So guards lowered a prisoner into the shaft with a rope, or they may have just thrown them down in there. And there was no room to sit or lie or squat, and sometimes no room to even turn around.
Right.
Not every prisoner was sentenced to the oubliette. The decision was strictly in the hands of the lord of the castle, so the earl would decide. Guards may or may not feed you. Most of the time, I mean, if you're truly being forgotten, you're starving to death in there. So there's no lawyer, there's no appeal, there's no prisoner's rights. That did not happen. An oubliette might be vacant for years or have a new victim stuffed in on top of the rotting remains of someone else. You just don't know. So these were built to cause the most severe psychological trauma and harm on a person. Which I think they succeeded pretty well.
Yeah.
There would be a single trapdoor at the top, which serves as the only entrance and the only exit. So you're not getting out. Many oubliettes were designed in a wine bottle shape. So once you were in, there was zero chance of escaping. Many times people were thrown in after intense torture and they would die. It was damp, claustrophobic, and could be filled with rats and the remains of previous prisoners. Sometimes oubliettes could be made in a way that you could only stand up. Doesn't that sound disgusting and horrific?
Yeah.
Some oubliettes could have a spiked floor, and horribly, the cells could be partly flooded, which would cause major panic, and sometimes prisoners would actually drown.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you were truly forgotten, you might last a few weeks. I mean, I guess that depends on your torture, right?
Depends on how much water you're getting.
Yeah. So at Warwick, the hole that they would throw you in, the little square, even though I say throw, like with air quotes, because I don't really think you could throw someone. I think they'd have to like shove them in. I mean, it's very small.
It looks pretty small.
Yeah. I mean, you could not be a large person and fit down in there,
no.
Which I don't think there were a lot of large people back then, but.
Well, they were the rich people.
Oh, yeah. I guess they weren't being put in oubliettes then. The oubliette there is long, narrow, and horizontal with jagged stones. And it looked to me like you couldn't stand up in there. But then I watched this episode of Most Haunted. Have you ever watched that show?
Mm-mm.
It's actually really good. They go to all these places. So they went to Warwick Castle, and 2 of the guys crawled down into the oubliette and with night vision cameras.
Oh.
Yeah, so go watch that episode if you want. It's really good.
I did see like some French reality show where they climbed down into there, but I don't know that it was at the same castle, but it was an oubliette anyway.
Oh, yeah.
And they like climbed down, and then there was like stairs, and they went into another area.
Oh.
So it was like still really small,
Yeah.
but you could fit more than one person.
Oh, I think I know which one you're talking about. I think I might have watched that too.
I have no idea what they were saying because it was all in French.
Because I watched, oh no, maybe that wasn't a French one, but there was one where they recently discovered in a castle, and they think that possibly actual Robin Hood was there.
Oh.
Even though they're not sure if Robin Hood is real.
That's cool.
But the Sheriff of Nottingham was a true person.
Yeah.
So anyway, in the Most Haunted, it looked like they could stand up. So I'm not sure how big it is in there. It's really hard to tell because when you look at the grate, it actually kind of juts off to the left, horizontally. So you can't really, it's not like a hole that goes all the way down. So you can't really see how big it is. It just looks terrible.
Yeah.
It looks really bad. So yeah, the episode is really creepy. And they also talk about Sir Fulk Greville, who got stabbed, and his portrait. They show his portrait, and they all are up there in the room. And yeah, it's really good. I liked it.
Maybe I'll post that.
Yeah, it's a really good episode. So that is the dungeon of Warwick Castle. So I did not hear, nobody shoved me or scratched me. I think the jailer wasn't there that day.
He was on a break.
But I can tell you that we did not stay there very long. And the feeling was, and I can tell you that once I walked back up the stairs and went outside, I felt immensely better. So I don't know what that says.
There's something dark there.
But there was something dark there. And I felt it. And also on the walls, there's a bunch of scratches, like people gouging things out. You can run your fingers over there, but it just feels so odd to feel like I'm touching that area where somebody was, where they're just hopeless, and
Suffering.
I just can't imagine.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the picture that you posted on our Insta.
Yes, the clue.
The clue. So this kind of spun me out because this was actually a very interesting story about that. It's just down the street from Warwick Castle, in the old Shire Hall, which was previously used as the County Crown Courts. And Old Shire Hall houses the county jail. G-O-A-L, which I love. G-O-A-L. Jail. That's how they used to spell jail. Yeah. And it's only just recently been open to visitors. So this was kind of a dark secret that the public didn't know about until Shire Hall closed in 2010. Because I was thinking, oh man, I wish I'd gone there when I was there. But I didn't know about it. It wasn't open and nobody knew about it. So stairs lead down to a cold beehive-shaped dungeon with 8 posts jutting out of the floor in a circle. And it's weird because when I first looked at it, I thought, well, how many people can they chain? And then I also thought, if you chain someone over a post, can't they just lift the chain off the post? But that's not how they chained them.
Right.
I realized that later. It was constructed by the Order of the Epiphany in 1680. And in the middle of the dungeon within the post was a cesspool for purposes of drainage. There is a grill over the opening in the roof, which can be seen in the grassy part of the outside courtyard. So I guess if you're walking around, you can see it. Mm-hmm. It must have been freezing in that dungeon. I mean,
I bet.
it was basically an open ceiling with a grill over it. And it would just rain on you also. So the dungeon was at risk of flooding, as it was also built over a constant spring. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Up to 60 people awaiting trial could have been chained up at any one time, lying there. That's nuts.
Yeah. So the diagram I saw was like, showed everyone chained up to the posts.
Yeah.
Lying in like a
circle.
Yeah, in a circle. Like if you were to lay out a deck of cards.
Yeah.
They were just like all filed.
Wow.
Like butt to front.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. Did I say they could have up to 60 people? Did I already say that? Okay. So prisoners lay with their feet chained towards the posts around the cesspool. A long chain ran through the staples in the posts and through a link in the prisoner's chain, and the restraint carried on up the steps through the inner door and was then padlocked. So they were all chained together around the posts, but they weren't. It was like these little metal things that came out of the posts.
Oh,
and they
like
would,
an eyelet or something.
Yeah, they would slide the chain through there. So that's how they couldn't possibly get out. If you look at the steps today, you can see where they've been worn away by the chains, because the chains would actually go up the steps, and then it's actually pretty creepy, and I'd love to see it. So some classes of prisoners recorded were Quakers, Anabaptists. Do you know what an Anabaptist is?
No,
I had to look it up. This is why I get spun out, because no, but it's actually cool that I never heard of that. This was actually a sect of people who believed that you should wait to baptize until people can make the choice and not baptize as babies.
Oh, okay.
That was a sin.
It's just it seems like just a preference, but
well, nowadays
apparently not.
We have a lot of things that seem like a preference nowadays. And other unorthodox folk. So who knows who that is? But it was
Witches.
later, yeah, it was later used for deserters from the army, especially during the Napoleonic Wars. And we'll go ahead and post that picture that you were talking about of people.
The diagram,
because it's weird, because at first you can't even see it. It's so lightly done. I think it was drawn a long time ago. And then you realize that, oh my gosh, those are people laying there. It's so weird. And you can actually go to coventrytelegraph.net to see the pictures. And I think I talked about this in the beginning, rwarwickshire.org.uk. So, yeah. That is the very condensed history and hauntings of Warwick Castle.
That's pretty exciting.
That was very condensed. I did 1,000 years and
you had all week.
But yeah, so that's it. And I've always loved that castle. I would say I saw a lot of castles that year, and that's my top two. My other favorite castle is Kidwelly, which is in Wales.
Is it also haunted?
I'm not sure. But Kidwelly is not like Warwick. Warwick is, obviously kept up, and there's things. Kidwelly was in ruins when we went.
Oh.
But it was just a beautiful castle where the Kidwelly itself is beautiful. And you take a little train out, and there's like this little platform, and you have to like tell the conductor, can you drop me off here? And then it comes back one time that day, and you have to be out there like waving at it.
So you might just get stuck there.
You might get stuck there. I remember them telling us, well, you might get stuck. And we were like, oh my gosh. So we made it in time.
Well, that's good.
But yeah, so I've always just been obsessed with Warwick, and I think it has a really cool history.
It does. I can say that I've never been to a castle before.
Oh, we need to take you.
I've been to a lot of monuments.
Yeah.
But not a castle.
I've been to a lot of castles, and I feel like anyone who's traveling anywhere, just try to see the castles. There's so much history there. I saw abbeys and castles, and I don't know. To me, it's worth it.
Sounds cool. We should go on a trip.
COVID.
I still don't have a passport, and we're still not allowed to go anywhere. But when we can.
I have a passport. I just renewed.
Never had a need for one. I've never left.
There's always a need.
Never left the country.
I know there's so many other countries too I want to go to.
Well, I think really the main thing is I've never had money.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like, I don't have the money to go anywhere, so who cares? I don't need a passport.
That's true. But then you get older and you start having more money.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for this beautiful drink.
Of course.
I want everyone to go out and buy Mead because I think it's very interesting.
It is very interesting.
And we love you guys.
Thanks for listening. Just a reminder, actually, new news. We're up on YouTube.
Whoop, whoop.
Our first episode's up there in our trailer. We just got accepted to Google Podcasts, although I haven't been able to find us on Google Podcasts. I think it's going to take a while for them to index us.
Oh.
But you can find us on Spotify and Stitcher, also through our RSS feed. We're on Twitter at Killer Spirits. We're on Instagram at Killer Spirits Pod. So if you want to join us over there, I'll be posting pictures and links and all kinds of stuff that you can click on as you're listening to this episode.
Yeah. And anybody who has ideas on what they want to hear.
Yeah. Send us a message.
We're down. I have a list of a very long list, but I'd love to add to it.
Yeah. And I had a lot of fun making this cocktail.
It's delicious.
I had to test a lot of things. I drank a lot of drinks.
You went down the spirits rabbit hole and I went down the other spirits rabbit hole.
Yes. And I want to make it historical, but I also want to make it good.
Yeah. No, it's delicious. Thanks. I highly recommend. Someday she'll be out with her cocktail cookbook.
Killer Spirits.
Do they call it cocktail cookbook?
Cocktail.
You don't cook.
It's just a cocktail book.
Cocktail recipe book.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'll put the recipe up.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.